It's roster report card time, and today you grade the Angels in the outfield.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Today, you're grading the outfield, the starters, the backup, and the guys that filled in, the young guys that came up. We're going to talk about all of them. But before we do, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5. And if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we're grading the roster, the 2025 MLB roster for the Angels. Of course, there were a lot of players who came up, came down, were signed, then dropped, and so we're going through all of them, starting with the outfield, and it's all your grades. This is all over nearly 200 respondents from our everydayers and listeners and viewers of Locked On Angels. So this is compiling all those grades together. We're giving them a letter grade and a score. And then the top comments, Mike, I pulled the top 3 comments that kind of describe the season for these players. In fact, you haven't seen these yet, have you?
I have not seen these, so I am fresh to this report card as much as everybody else is. So I'm looking forward to seeing if my choices and my grades would match up with yours and maybe where we could possibly disagree. And if we disagree, then I'd love to fight about it. That'd be fun.
Speaking of disagree, I feel like there's going to be some of that with this first guy, Taylor Ward, Mike. Taylor Ward was given a score of 3.77. That was good for a straight B average. Some of the comments here, Mike, a career year, but, and there was a lot of buts. Let's talk about your big butt, Simone, right? From Pee-wee's Big Adventure. There was a lot of like good words about Taylor Ward, but also like some caveats. Lazy defense, good numbers for the back of the baseball card. People have been listening to you too much about Taylor Ward. But it was stuff like that. So it was a career year. However, is kind of the way that I would put that. Should have traded was the second comment. And the third comment made me laugh. A lot of this, strike 3 looking like the grades for Taylor Ward. So again, a 3.77, a B grade, and some of your comments from our everydayers. What do you think of those, Mike?
I think it's fair. I think it's very fair. I would give Taylor Ward a B as well because it was a career year. And so if you just look at his year by itself, again, back of the baseball card, baseballreference.com, right? You're going to look at the stats and you're going to go, wow, he really had a great year because the home run numbers were strong and the RBI numbers were strong. Batting average wasn't as strong, but you kind of expect that when you're hitting a bit more with power. However, there is a lot of caveats to Taylor Ward's season. And the biggest one is that he is the guy that you expected to come through in big moments. And nothing more epitomizes the lack of coming through in big moments. It was that last game, right? The last at bat that he had in the last game of the year when the Angels needed to come back and he doesn't even swing at 3 strikes in the zone. And you're wondering what he's waiting for. You're wondering what he's thinking about, and maybe he just wanted to go home. Who knows? But there was a lot of that with Taylor Ward in 2026. And so that really kind of puts a stain on his career year and his career season. It keeps him from being a B+ or even an A- because there was a lot of like, oh man, he should have and he could have. And then if you add in the defense, Jon, his defense just was mediocre. It was very neutral. And if that's who he is, then great. But the problem is that there was a lot of moments where balls are over his head and he's kind of spinning around trying to find it, or something drops in front of him where you go, man, that felt like it was right at his shoe tops and he didn't make the effort to get there. And then with Bryce Teodosio in center field for the last part of the season next to him, you can see the difference in awareness. You can see the difference in the route running. You can see the difference in the aggressiveness. I know Taylor Ward probably doesn't want the ball to get past him. He probably doesn't want to make a mistake out there, but it felt like he was dancing. It felt like he was on feathers, right? It felt like he didn't want to crack the egg when he was trying to chase the baseball. And so I agree with this letter grade. I think a B is very fair because it was a career year offensively, and he wasn't bad defensively, but he wasn't good defensively anyway. But this is what happens, John, when you have somebody like Taylor Ward on your team and you're expecting him to be one of the guys instead of just a guy in your lineup. And on a good team, he's just a guy that can really help your team, but you're expecting him to really step up. Now, not to discount what he did this year. I mean, the grand slam against the Padres was exciting, and he had a couple of games where he came through and hit doubles and home runs, and that is very much appreciated. But it did feel like in the moments where we needed to really win the game, where it mattered in the series or it mattered in the standings, Taylor Ward just didn't come through in those moments. And so, again, fair grade. Believe the everydayers are accurate on this one.
There's a part of me that believes that, if he didn't leave so much on the table, like watching strike three, right, he could have done some serious damage in favor of helping the Angels. So
yeah.
I wonder, Mike, if he's under different instruction and all indications are, we'll have a whole new coaching staff, manager, that sort of thing. I wonder if he gets the right instruction and somebody kind of turns that notch up a bit and says, hey, dude, we needed you in that moment. Like, you could have hit the grand slam against the Astros to tie it up. Right. And obviously you can't do that all the time. And it's not going to be 100% success rate, but it just makes you wonder, hey, if he just turned the dial up a little bit, was a little bit more aggressive.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he would have come through in so many more moments. And I think that's the case with Taylor
And it's
Ward.
contact. It's contact is key, right? I'm watching the playoffs. I'm watching the Blue Jays who are playing the Mariners, right? And it was contact. Both of those teams were making contact to make sure that they could move runners over. And that was all that Taylor Ward needed to do in that very last at bat. We're not hit a grand slam, but make some contact, right? There was a lot of moments where, hey, perhaps a sacrifice fly would be really beneficial right here instead of swinging and missing or not swinging at all and watching the ball go straight down the middle.
Yeah. You know how you know that you secretly love somebody is when you talk about them for almost 6 minutes. And that's what you just did. So I know that you actually are a big Taylor Ward fan. But we'll move on because we still have
the Taylor Ward lover, though.
That's right. You're not Taylor Ward lover.
Media.
Mike Trout. Let's take a look at Mike Trout. He got a 3.04 out of 5. That's good for a C+. Most of the comments were some form or fashion of at least he played, too many strikeouts, and better next year. How do you feel about those, Mike?
John, I think that with Taylor, I do love Taylor Ward. With Mike Trout,
you got a crush on Taylor.
Why don't you marry it? So with Mike Trout, I think it's difficult to grade him because it is going to be covered in this bias of, well, at least he played. At least he was out there for more games than he played since 2019. And I love that. I love that he was out there. The problem is, John, is that he wasn't the Mike Trout that we thought he could be or we've seen him be in years past. So a C+ grade, I think, is very generous to Mike Trout because I would probably give him a C, flat C, just because he was somebody that couldn't figure out his swing for a good portion of the season. Now, coaching is needed in those moments. That's something that he needed, but Trout just couldn't figure it out. I remember the episode where you're like, figure it out, Trout, figure out your swing. Like, what are we doing? Right. I mean, if he's going to be the Hall of Famer that he says that he is, then, and that people believe that he is, then he has to figure that stuff out. And the thing that, the reason why I feel like a C+ grade is very generous to Mike Trout, and we talk about him being hurt and his age and things like that. John, Aaron Judge is only like 6 months younger than Mike Trout, right? Bryce Harper has been hurt a lot, not as much as Trout, but he's still in there and he's still grinding. And the difference between those two guys and Mike Trout is that they're clutch. They come through when it's necessary, right? They're on base when it's necessary. I think about what happened with Bryce Harper in the game against the Dodgers last game. And he goes from first to third on a single and then causes the throw to go past third base and he scores. Right. We haven't seen that from Mike Trout. I know he's trying to be hesitant with his leg and he doesn't want to get hurt. And I get all of that. The other reason why we haven't seen it, John, is because he's just not getting on base like he used to. I know he's walking, but it felt like he was trying to walk more than hit this year. So that's why I would give him a C grade and not a C+, because it didn't feel like he was going up there to do damage. It felt like he was going up there going, please get on base, please get on base, please get on base. And that's not the Mike Trout that we're used to.
No, it's certainly not. And I wonder, with the sentiment of better next year, well, he showed flashes at the end of the season there, Mike, of just the fact that it seemed like he figured out what his swing was, too little, too late, but at least he figured it out in a lost season to where maybe he comes in better at the beginning of 2026. All right, let's go to my favorite.
Yep.
Jo Jo Adell was given a 4.37 score out of 5. Mike, that's good for an A-. Most of the comments said some form or fashion of breakout season, most improved, and then just a lot of finally, let's go. He broke the bus narrative is a lot of what people had to say about Jo Adell. So again, a 4.37 A- score for Jo Adell. What do you say?
John, this is more of an emotional grade than it is a factual grade. Emotions in me say A+. I mean, this guy has fought to get here, and he had a decent year last year, and then to have this year, this breakout year, and to start off the way that he did, he wasn't good. Like, he wasn't good. And I complained about him, and you fought for him, and good on you for sticking with him. John, he had that incredible June, and then he was decent the rest of the year. Yeah. And I know they had strikeouts, and that was a part of the deal. And I think that that's going to just be a part of the deal with the Angels from last season, right? But he is somebody that really, you could tell, put in the work, and you could see his confidence really growing and became a threat in this lineup. The difference between him and Taylor Ward is I think Jo Adell has the guy in him. I don't think he's one of the guys. I think he has the potential to be the threat in this starting lineup. I think he has the potential to be not just a fifth hitter, but a fourth hitter. I think he's somebody that the Angels can count on to be there next year. And I think they need to utilize him in that way. Now, he's streaky, but I think he had moments after the June streak where he was a bit more consistent, and that's why you see great numbers. So more emotional than factual. I give him an A+. And so I love that the everydayers gave him an A-. I'm going to say, finally, good on you, bro. A+ for Jo Adell.
Yeah, I think you're right about the emotional grade, but to see our everydayers who, I've had to battle for Jo Adell for the last 4 years, to know that our everydayers gave him an A-, I think is really awesome because, I think it's well-deserved. I think being in that A range is certainly well-deserved. Now, I think a minus makes sense because, there's areas of improvement. There's always areas of improvement. So for Jo Adell to get the A-, especially from our everydayers who are not always kind.
Well, and that's the thing. Remember, there was a whole debate on, Mickey Moniak is doing this, and we should have gotten rid of Jo Adell and kept Mickey Moniak. And that was
Kyren
more,
Paris,
Angels social media than anything else. Kyren Paris should play and Jo Adell shouldn't play. And the Angels stuck with him, and he proved that was the right decision. And I'm thankful that he did, because he seems like a really good dude, but also seems like somebody that's going to put in the work and continue to be a threat in this lineup for the next couple of years.
Definitely. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we're continuing our conversation and your grades for the outfield. What did you give Bryce Teodosio? How about Jorge Soler? What about some of the utility guys who kind of played all over the place, but kind of contributed at the same time? We're going to get into all of that coming right up.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. So you can put down $5, and if it hits, you can unlock $300 in bonus bets to use any way you'd like on FanDuel. I love FanDuel. The app is great. It has so many different ways that you can play. I've built parlays. I've tried player props. I've even followed the live lines during games. That's a lot of fun to do. Whether you're a casual fan or you love just diving into the stats like my brother John does, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better, especially when your favorite team doesn't win on Sunday. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today to get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. And the most important thing is, whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube and find today's episode and get in on the conversation. Of course, you've already done that because these are your contributions, your grades, and your comments. All of our everydayers who jumped in, we thank you so much for your contributions and helping us create this content. And so this is for you guys, and we really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit us up on social media at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros. We're definitely going to be posting these letter grades on all of our social media so that you can kind of pour over them and see, what they were, just instead of the, quick instances on the show. And that way we can have a deeper discussion on social media as well. So, Mike, we're going to kind of the backups, so to speak, but also some of the guys who were there and weren't there, and then maybe came up later in the season. And one of those guys who came up later in the season was Bryce Teodosio. and Teodosio received a score of 3.40. That's good for a B minus. And most of the comments had something to do with words like grit and hustle and great defense. They did say he needs a better bat. He needs to hit. Some people said starting center fielder in 2026. Some people said fourth outfielder in 2026. So that's where I want to start with you, Mike. Starting center field in 26 or fourth outfielder in 2026?
Jon, he's got to be the fourth outfielder. I don't think he should start in center field, and here's why. We have a tendency as everydayers and Angel fans to fall in love with mid. We fall in love with mediocre, right? And when we brought in players that ended up having a stretch where they were really, really good and then kind of helped the team, but their numbers weren't great overall, right? Picked up this guy late in the season or picked up this guy at the trade deadline or maybe off the waiver wire and they kind of performed and we thought,
I'm
hey,
thinking of Mike Moustakas, right?
That's mainly one of them. Yeah. And remember, even with Moustakas, fans were like, man, he should be the starting third baseman next year. Let's re-sign him. Let's bring him on the team. He had a good run with the Angels, and it was more of a heartfelt moment and an emotional moment.
Yeah.
But we have a tendency to fall in love with mid. And so I would caution Angel fans to not fall in love with Teodosio until he can learn how to hit. He has to be somebody that can produce offensively. I know that he can be a weapon with bunting. The thing that we love about him is his defense. I just don't want to give him a slot in the outfield because I think that we still need to upgrade this roster, and Teodosio is not an upgrade over somebody that we already have. Even a Soler, he's not an upgrade in the lineup over a Soler. I would love for him to prove me wrong there, and I would love for that to be something that he does this next year. But we have a tendency to go, well, and I think we've kind of been lulled to sleep by this front office for so many years. And so I love Bryce Teodosio. I think your grade, Everydayers, was very generous to him. I don't think I would give him a B minus. I think I'm in the C category, but I think we give him a B minus because of his defense and because of his speed and because of the route running. I mean, we even saw when he was removed from a game and Jo Adell was put in the game that Jo Adell couldn't get to a ball that everybody, you and I even said, Teodosio would have caught that, right? No shade on Jo Adell. It was just that Teodosio is so great at reading the ball off the bat. And so that's why I think he should be a fourth outfielder, a defensive replacement. I think he's somebody that could come in and take over. I think he's somebody that could bat every once in a while. Think everydayers remember Rafael Palmeiro. He was with the Angels when they won the World Series. Left-handed bat, came in, could hit. That's what I would love Teodosio to be. I would love for him to be the guy that kind of just gives everybody a break, a breather, is probably playing 3 to 4 times a week because he's doing that, but he needs to make contact. He needs to hit, and the Angels need to allow him to do that even in big moments. They need to stop taking him out when games don't matter, and yet you want him to see what he can do. You need to stop removing him from those games.
Well, and that was what I was going to point out to was, Ray Montgomery loved to pinch hit Luis Rengifo for Bryce Teodosio.
Yeah.
And that's what moved Jo Adell to center field. And Jo Adell couldn't get that ball.
Yeah.
And we all said, Bryce gets that ball. If Bryce is your fourth outfielder, he's not in that situation where he's getting pinch hit for, right?
Yeah.
He's coming in for somebody.
Yes.
And so maybe he's coming in late in the game to play center field and getting that ball. So you're right. They need to allow him to hit. They can't try to make him, like all 9 other hitters. You can't have 9 Taylor Wards. You can't have 9 Mike Trouts.
Yeah.
You need a Teodosio. You need a slap hitter. You need a bunter. You need a contact guy. And he's all of those things. He can be all of those things. And Mike, there were certainly moments where he would dump one into right center and, and end up
showed
at
a lot
second.
of potential, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it was frustrating to see him pulled in those moments. My second comment about Teodosio I'll say this. We got Andrelton Simmons from the Braves. Glove first, amazing defense. He proved that with the Braves. And then year over year, his bat started to come around until, was it 2019, I think, was one of his best, maybe it was 2018, one of his best offensive seasons, right?
Yeah.
I know he was hurt a lot, but the bat year over year got better and better and better. And that's because they wanted Simmons at shortstop every day.
Yep.
And so I wonder what the balance is between having Teodosio be there every day and allowing his bat to get better. I'm with you. I think fourth outfield makes sense. And I think signing somebody in the off season makes sense, or maybe a trade or what have you. But for Teodosio to get more opportunities so that bat can come around, I think that's going to play a huge factor for him. All right, you mentioned him, and let's talk about him. He was meant to be our DH, ended up playing a lot of right field, ended up saying, too many owies. Again, I don't understand what happened between Atlanta and Anaheim, where all of a sudden he was like, I can't play right field that much. It's like, well, bro, you played the second half of the season in right field with the Braves. Like, you just not like the grass in Anaheim. Like,
right.
Is that the difference? But Jorge Soler, Mike, our everydayers gave him a 1.76 out of 5. That's good for a D grade, not a D minus, not a D plus, just a regular old D grade. Some of the comments were disappointing, injured and hurt. Some related to, the fact that he just wasn't on the field or even at the plate. And then some commenters said, trade him. And that's a route that I think the Angels could go down this offseason is, all right, who's out there who needs a DH?
Yeah.
We got one for you. Because in my opinion, I think Trout needs to DH full time.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't want to. I know he doesn't like it. But you got to do what's right for his health and his future. And honestly, you make him full-time DH, and maybe he starts to feel better and can play some outfield. But at the end of the day, Mike, I think that there's a log jam now, and I think Jorge Soler is part of it. What do you think of the 1.76 score and the D grade?
Yeah, that's fair. And I think when it comes to Jorge Soler, you got him. Remember why they signed him. They needed power. Their slugging was terrible in 2024. So they got him to bring some slug. Then this team started slugging, right? And so the danger is you trade him and then they stop slugging. But I think that there's something that Jo Adell has figured out, and even Taylor Ward has figured out, that will be beneficial for this lineup. I also think that them maybe dialing back on the home runs and hitting more doubles would be beneficial for this offense overall. And so I think they need to decide what they're going to do with Jorge Soler before they trade Taylor Ward. They need to trade Jorge Soler and get him off this team. I don't think you can get much, but I do think that they need to get him off this team because he is a copy and paste of almost all the other power hitters on this team. And so you don't need that. Plus, he's not going to be able to, at least what we're seeing, play the outfield, and you need somebody to play the outfield. So I agree with our everydayers. I would try to see if I could deal him in some capacity this offseason.
You mentioned how they need to make a decision on him. Well, here's somebody that the Angels might be making a decision on coming into 2026, and that is Matthew Lugo. He got a score of 2.36. That was good for a C minus. Much of the comments said he needs time, he needs more development. And then I saw a lot of quad A, right? A, not AAA, but quad A. Mike, sometimes I feel like we're a little too quick to put the quad A label on somebody.
Yeah.
Because this was the first time he was ever in the major leagues this year.
Yep.
Right? 2025. First time he touched the majors. I think it's too soon to put a quad A label on him. Don't you think so?
Yeah. I think what we saw in the first few games with him was that he has a dynamic bat and he could be a dynamic player. Remember, he had a couple of big home runs in that Padres series as well. He was the guy that helped bring them back. I think that's who he is.
He also had a really good spring training too.
Yeah. I think that's who he is. I would say more development. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a spot for him in this starting lineup, but we do have a tendency to be very over dramatic. We have a tendency to not play the middle ground or see the nuance here. And so to say quad A, I think it's unfair for Matthew Lugo. I think right now, if you get any sort of production from Matthew Lugo, it's a benefit. It's a boon because he was one of 4 players that you got for a guy that was on your team just this last year in Luis Garcia. So I think he's probably going to be the best piece out of all of that. And I think he's going to be somebody that could be a part of this team for the future. So don't discount him. I do think he needs more time in the minors. And I think the way the roster's set up right now, they don't need to bring him up. And that's the problem with the Angels is they bring up guys very, very quickly. The issue there, though, is that there are some that can do that. And those are the first round draft picks.
Right.
But Matthew Lugo is not. And so he reminds me a lot, John, of Jo Adell, where he's going to need some time. And so don't give up on him yet, because I think that Matthew Lugo might be the guy that kind of shows up. Like Addison Barger plays third base for the Blue Jays. He was in the minor leagues when the season started. He needed some development, and then they brought him up, and now he's hitting cleanup in the ALCS, right? And that I think is kind of the trajectory that I could see potentially Matthew Lugo going down.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him coming out of spring training. There are a lot of guys who have similar questions, and we're going to get into those conversations here in just a minute.
A lot of us don't have a full picture of what's going on with our money. We end up leaving money on the table, and that's why you need some help, and Monarch Money is here to help you. It's a all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life all together in one easy-to-use interface to put on your laptop or maybe even on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting. They can link all of your accounts in minutes. There's clear data visuals that they're going to show you. They're going to categorize your spending, and you're going to see what you're spending, what you're bringing in. You're finally going to feel like you're in control, because what Monarch Money promises is clarity, clarity, clarity. And you can't lose when you see all of it, all the facts right in front of you. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get half off your first year. Again, 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using the promo code LOCKEDONMLB.
You know, we're about to talk about somebody that we haven't really talked about in a while, Mike, kind of wonder what his role in this system on this team might be for 2026. And that's Kyren Paris. Kyren Paris was given a score by our everydayers of 2.46 out of 5. That's good for a C-. A lot of the comments said he still has potential. He needs more time. And then kind of something related to, that was a fun 2 weeks. That was really a fun 2 or 3 weeks there to start the season with Kyren Paris. Remember, he led the league in OPS for a while to start the season. That was crazy.
Yeah.
But that's where we stand with Kyren Paris. Again, a 2.46 out of 5, a C- grade. Mike, give me your thoughts on Paris.
Yeah, it's the underlining numbers that you always have to pay attention to with players that are coming up. And his underlining numbers were not great. We did a whole episode about that. There was a lot of critique of Kyren Paris. We did push back on some of the numbers, but what we found was that Kyren Paris was figured out. And then he went to the minor leagues he needed to figure out some things. So I think the guy that we saw in spring training and the guy that we saw in the first couple of weeks is the guy that he could be. He just needs to figure out how he doesn't need to swing and miss. And I think a lot of that had to do with the strategy that Johnny Washington brought to this team, and Kyren Paris and what he was taught in the offseason. It kind of wasn't able to coexist in a sense, because he had the Aaron Judge hitting coach that was teaching him how to swing. And then he was told to go and end the at bat when he needs to. And so there was a lot of swinging and missing. There was a lot of pitch that he didn't recognize, and a lot of down and away stuff. I mean, I know we've had a couple of episodes early this year where we were like, Kyren, they're going to throw it down and away. Stop swinging at it. But every single time he would swing at it.
Yeah. And there was a glimmer of hope there at the end where it seemed like he was starting to pick up on, hey, I got to take this the other way, hit it the other direction. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Kyren Paris coming into 2026. Here's a guy that was a pleasant surprise, in my opinion. That's Chris Taylor. Remember, he was let go from the Dodgers, and then the Angels snapped him up. Played a lot of outfield, but also played the infield as well. So kind of the same as Kyren Paris. Now, Paris did play more outfield than infield, but Chris Taylor, he got a score of 2.51 from our everydayers. That's good for a C grade. A lot of people said, bring him back. Some people said, that was a good pickup. And then other people said, he was a nice backup. And I think I agree with all those sentiments, except maybe bring him back.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit torn. Basically, I don't want to bring him back until we have the A roster, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to think about the B and the C roster until we have the A roster. But for his contributions to this team this year, even though he did get hurt, and actually you could kind of feel it when he got hurt, I was impressed with Chris Taylor. How about you?
He brought depth, John, and that's the Angels' biggest issue. Their Achilles heel. They never have good depth. So to be able to get him and have him be on the roster to fill in when necessary was good. And you're right. When he was gone, we certainly felt it, because what was behind him was terrible. And so if they don't have that, if they don't have good behind him, then I would say bring him back. But I would love to see first what sort of depth that Perry Manassian can develop, although he hasn't shown to find really good depth. So I guess I'm kind of wishful thinking here.
Yeah, find it, grow it, plant it. It's not there. Now, in terms of some depth that, isn't terrible. It's Gustavo Campero, Mike. He got a score of 2.04. He got a D+ grade. A lot of the comments said something along the lines of like the heart, like the hustle. Many people brought up he had that horrific ankle injury. And then a lot of comments that were like, hey, good backup, good bench piece, good depth piece. I think that he's all of those. I don't think he needs to be the starting right fielder like he was there for a long time. He's somebody that, when somebody's hurt, bring him up, put him on the bench. Have him feeling. And I do respect the heart and the hustle that Campero brought to the team. How about you?
Well, yes. And that's the thing. You can't teach will. He's got will. You can teach skill. And what he doesn't have yet is baseball IQ. Yeah. When he plays out there, when he's at the plate, when he's in the outfield, I get that they're throwing him in right field, by the way, which is not his natural position. No. But it still feels like he doesn't have that baseball IQ, which comes with development. But I think he could be a guy that you go, oh, yeah, he's a really fun player to watch, perhaps a backup, but a fun player to watch and a good piece on this team to bring some depth.
Here was a total swing and miss, and that was Lamont Wade Jr., 1.36. He got an F grade, Mike. A bad pickup. Didn't work out, and then instead of late night Lamont, it was late night MIA, and that's certainly the case with Lamont Wade Jr., wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a terrible pickup. I know that they were just trying to bring veterans and get some depth, but then he started playing over other people, and it was like, what is he doing in there? He's not helpful at all, and he's not going to be a benefit to this lineup. Swung and missed a lot. It just wasn't the guy that they were hoping he would be, but we all knew that except for Perry.
And what's frustrating is before he got signed, I said, you know what? I don't think it's a bad pickup because even though his numbers are down, the underlying metrics say that he's still making contact. He's still doing this. He's still doing that. And then he came here and didn't do any of those things. Yeah. And now it kind of makes sense, right? Oh, what happened to Lamont Wade Jr.'s contact? Well, it was coached out of him once he got here. And I think that was a big part of what went wrong with Lamont Wade Jr. Now, in the truest sense of the word, this guy, if you want to know what a quad A player is, it's Scott Kingery.
Yep.
And he got a 1.51 grade. That was a score. That was a D grade. Quad A, lots of quad A comments. Couldn't translate to Major League Baseball, which is very true. And then inadequate depth, as in didn't provide much despite being a depth piece. So this is the definition of a quad A player who, high hopes, and every time he's come up, it just does not translate. So I think that he's been around the block. Obviously, remember, he's been around with the Phillies and now the Angels. It hasn't worked out. That, to me, is a guy who is a quad A versus somebody like Matthew Lugo, who is, he's only just begun, right? That's how I feel about it. And so, give me Matthew Lugo over Scott Kingery any day of the week.
Yeah, it's why they had to sign Chris Taylor, right? They had to sign Chris Taylor because Scott Kingery could not be the guy that they needed him to be. Yeah. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on social media at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros. Come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section because we want to hear your responses to your letter grades. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Yeah, we're going to grade the infield. Well, more specifically, you're going to grade the infield, and then we're going to find out if we agree. I'm still flying blind here, so I get to see the grades live as you see them. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
All right, friends, thanks for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more Locked On Angels.
Let's not say quad A anymore. Let's just leave it out.
Yeah, it's too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.